At an exclusive jewelry boutique in Beverly Hills, global pop icon Jungkook steps inside with a quiet sense of purpose. His hoodie slightly lowered, cap pulled forward, and a black mask covering half his face. He didn't want attention. Not today. All he wanted was to find the perfect birthday gift for his sister. Something meaningful, something personal. He had been eyeing a specific charm bracelet for weeks. Delicate silver, subtle glimmer, the kind of piece that told someone, "You matter." He had saved for it during breaks between tour stops, quietly setting aside cash. This wasn't about luxury, it was about love. The moment Jungkook entered Melania Trump's boutique, Amazing Trump, a chill swept across the air-conditioned room. Crystal chandeliers sparkled overhead, mirrored walls amplified every subtle motion, and the space was scented with imported white roses and prestige. Melania stood behind the counter, statuesque in her white silk blouse, oversized sunglasses still perched on her head, though they were indoors. Her gaze was sharp, measured. She barely glanced up at first, but when she did, her expression subtly shifted. The line of her mouth tightened. Her perfectly manicured hand paused on the counter. To her, he was a stranger in casual clothes, masked, quiet, alone. Jungkook noticed the shift immediately, the kind of silent alarm he had grown used to in places where fame didn't quite follow or wasn't recognized through layers of fabric. Still, he smiled politely and pointed toward the bracelet inside the velvet case. "I'd like to see that one, please," he said, his voice low, composed. Melania raised an eyebrow, folding her arms slowly. "Are you sure?" she asked, her tone warm at the edges, but dipped in condescension. "That bracelet is quite exclusive." Jungkook nodded, unfazed. "Yes, I've been saving for it." He pulled out a thin wallet, revealing neatly folded cash. His hands moved calmly, respectfully. Melania's eyes flicked to the money. Her lips curled slightly, not in amusement, not in approval, more like irritation. She said softly, still not moving toward the case. "And where exactly does someone like you come across that kind of money?" Jungkook blinked once, slowly. He had heard this question before, dressed in different words, wearing different faces. "I work," he said calmly, "and I save." Melania tilted her head as if she were considering whether to laugh or call security. "That's admirable," she said with the air of someone deeply unconvinced. "But I've owned this boutique for years. I know when something doesn't feel right." Jungkook's jaw tensed beneath his mask. He kept his shoulders relaxed, but inside a quiet fire flickered. "I'd just like to see the bracelet," he said again, a bit firmer now. Melania exhaled, slow and theatrical. "Fine," she said finally, unlocking the glass case as if doing him a favor. She retrieved the velvet tray and placed it on the counter with clinical precision. "Be careful with it," she added sharply. "It's worth more than your sneakers." Jungkook didn't respond. He gently reached for the bracelet, his fingertips brushing the cool metal. When in a moment that would change everything, the bracelet slipped. A soft clink echoed through the boutique. Melania's tone cut sharp through the perfumed air. "Be careful with it," she warned, her voice now laced with ice. "It's worth more than what you probably make in a year." Jungkook gritted his teeth beneath the mask, but said nothing. He reached out gently, lifting the silver bracelet. It felt perfect in his hands, just like he imagined. He turned it ever so slightly, admiring the craftsmanship, the soft clink of the dangling charms, and then it slipped. A quick breath, a faint metallic click. The bracelet landed harmlessly on the glass counter, then bounced and slid to the floor. Jungkook froze. Before he could so much as reach down to retrieve it, Melania gasped, loud, sharp, theatrical. "Oh my God, I knew it!" she shrieked, voice slicing through the boutique like broken crystal. "He tried to steal it, I saw him. He was palming it." Heads turned, conversations died mid-sentence. Every pair of eyes locked on Jungkook. He raised his hand slightly, instinctively, a small gesture of confusion and defense. "Wait, no, it slipped." But Melania was already lunging for the boutique phone. "Get the police here. Now," she snapped into the receiver. A thief, Asian male, hoodie, tried to steal a bracelet. Jungkook stood frozen, her words crashing into him like a tidal wave. The weight of them, how effortlessly she crafted that lie, how easily the room believed it. Judgment filled the space like smoke, tight glances, retreating bodies, clutching handbags. No one spoke, no one questioned her. The woman in the corner narrowed her eyes. An older man in a linen suit muttered under his breath. And then, sirens, distant at first, then growing louder, nearer. Jungkook's heart pounded in his ears. He'd seen this happen before on the news, in stories whispered between other foreign artists, in his own manager's repeated warnings. "Be careful. Don't go alone. Don't draw attention." But nothing could prepare him for this. Being cast as a criminal in a city he'd performed in just days ago. He didn't move. He couldn't. He kept his posture calm, steady, because anything else, any sudden motion, could make it worse. Melania was still speaking into the phone, her tone now softer, more sinister. Yes, he's still here, trying to deny it. I caught him red-handed, and he's starting to get aggressive. Jungkook's stomach twisted. Aggressive? He hadn't even raised his voice, hadn't taken a step, but her story was being built, brick by brick. And the room? The room was buying it. He clenched his fists, breath shallow. His eyes locked on hers. I didn't steal anything, he said, his voice controlled, trembling only at the edges. You know that. Melania folded her arms, her expression a sculpture of disdain. Oh, don't give me that innocent act. You people think you can walk in here, hide behind your masks, and grab what you want while no one's looking. She scanned him from head to toe. Hoodie, joggers, designer sneakers. You don't belong here, and you knew it the moment you stepped through my door. The words stung, the implications sharper than any slur. You don't belong. Jungkook swallowed the fury rising in his chest. The injustice, the helplessness, the humiliation, they pressed against his lungs like cement. Suddenly, the boutique's glass doors burst open. Two uniformed officers stormed in, hands on holsters, eyes scanning. There he is, Melania cried, pointing at Jungkook like she was identifying a wanted fugitive. That's him. He tried to steal from me. Jungkook barely had time to respond before one of the officers, a tall man with graying hair, his badge reading Sergeant Blake, stepped forward, handcuffs already in hand. Sir, I need you to put your hands where I can see them. Jungkook's breath hitched. He didn't move. Another officer flanked Blake, this one younger, eyes sharper, slower to act. His gaze flicked between Jungkook and Melania. Blake's voice grew harder. I said, hands where I can see them. I didn't do anything, Jungkook replied. Steady now, quieter but firmer. Check the cameras, please. Melania scoffed, louder than ever, stepping toward the officer. Are you seriously going to fall for this performance? He dropped the bracelet. He was trying to take it. I saw him. The nerve. Jungkook stood still, mask on, hands visible, voice calm, but inside he was screaming. Are you seriously going to stand there and argue? Melania snapped, her voice rising. After I caught you? She pointed dramatically at the bracelet still lying on the floor. You tried to pocket that. The nerve of you people. Jungkook flinched. You people. The phrase sliced deeper than the accusation itself. His fists curled slightly at his sides. The younger officer, his name tag read Doyle, hesitated. His eyes flicked from Jungkook to the bracelet to Melania. He wasn't as quick to act as his partner. Jungkook caught that flicker of doubt, but it didn't matter. Sergeant Blake was already stepping forward, handcuffs drawn, expression hard and unforgiving. Sir, he barked, I'm going to need you to step outside. Jungkook's pulse hammered against his skull. His breath came shallow. 1,000 headlines flashed across his mind, each one ending the same way. K-pop star arrested in Beverly Hills. Attempted theft or misunderstanding. Melania stood taller, arms crossed in smug certainty. She thought she had already won. Jungkook inhaled slowly and said calmly, call my manager. Blake scoffed. You can make your phone call at the station, kid. No, Jungkook said more firmly now. Call her now. Melania rolled her eyes. Oh, how convenient. Let's call mommy. What's she going to do? Release a statement about discrimination? She gave a hollow, humorless laugh. Ignoring her, Jungkook reached into his pocket, slowly, deliberately, and took out his phone. His fingers moved with quiet control as he dialed. Nuna, he said into the phone, I need you here. Now. Maison Trump, Beverly Hills. Blake's brow furrowed, though he still looked unconcerned. Doyle, however, shifted uncomfortably. There was something in Jungkook's tone, not panic, not anger, but calm, commanding confidence. He wasn't begging. He wasn't pleading. He was waiting. Time stretched. The boutique had gone quiet except for the impatient tapping of Melania's stiletto against the marble floor. Blake sighed, hand still on the cuffs. Doyle checked his watch. A few customers began recording from behind sunglasses and handbags. And then, the door opened. A tall woman stepped inside with quiet authority. Her tailored navy blue pantsuit hugged her frame perfectly. Her heels clicked against the floor with surgical precision. A leather badge case flipped on open in her hand, flashing credentials that made Blake's face drop. My name is Soo-Jin Han, International Legal Counsel and Crisis Director for HYBE Corporation, she said, voice smooth as glass but sharp as a blade. She gestured calmly toward Jungkook. And he, she added with unmistakable gravity, is our artist. The room froze. Blake's hands slowly dropped from the cuffs. His face turned pale. Doyle exhaled like he'd been holding his breath for 10 minutes. But it was Melania who reacted most violently. Her expression collapsed. First confusion, then horror, then disbelief. "What?" she stammered. Her voice no longer carried the poison it once had. You mean him? That's Jungkook?" Soojin didn't even glance at her. Her gaze remained fixed on Blake. "Sergeant," she said, tone still polite, but carrying a weight that silenced the room. "Do you have a reasonable explanation for why one of the most recognizable artists in the world was nearly handcuffed before a single question was asked?" Blake shifted on his feet, jaw tight. "We received a call reporting an attempted theft. We responded accordingly," Soojin cut in. She raised an eyebrow. "Responding accordingly now means rushing in and threatening arrest before you even check security footage?" Melania suddenly regained her voice. "I called because he dropped the bracelet and was clearly about to steal it," she barked. "I saw him. I stopped him just in time. What else was I supposed to do? Ignore it?" Soojin exhaled, her gaze finally drifting to Jungkook. He hadn't moved, hadn't spoken. He didn't need to. The emotion in his eyes said everything. The humiliation, the restraint, the slow-burning fury he refused to show. She turned back to Blake. "Did you check the security footage?" Blake hesitated. "We were just about to." "No," Soojin said, voice now cold as winter air. "You weren't. You were about to arrest him. Without evidence, without cause, without doing your job." Doyle cleared his throat. He glanced at Blake, then at Melania, then at Soojin. "We should check the footage." Blake's jaw twitched. He didn't like being undermined, but he knew better than to argue now. "Fine," he muttered. Melania's face twisted in disbelief. "You're seriously going to take her word over mine?" she said, voice climbing. "I told you what happened. He dropped the bracelet. He was going to steal it. You saw how he looked. You saw how he acted." Her voice cracked, and for the first time, she sounded desperate. Melania was still trying to speak, her voice fraying with disbelief. "You saw him. You saw how he acted. This is ridiculous." But Soojin Han finally turned her full attention to her. And it was enough. The intensity of Soojin's gaze, quiet, direct, and cutting, struck Melania harder than any shouted accusation. The former First Lady shrank, as if her posture alone could protect her from what was coming. The power she always assumed she held in rooms like this was slipping through her fingers like dust. "Mrs. Trump," Soojin began, her tone composed and smooth but edged like a blade. "Let me make something very, very clear to you." She took a slow, deliberate step forward. "You're standing in front of a young man who walked into your store to buy a bracelet for his sister. A man who saved his own hard-earned money. A man who has spent his life earning global respect through discipline, talent, and silence." She paused, letting her words weigh down the space. "And you labeled him a thief before he even said a word, because you decided in your head that he didn't belong here." The boutique went utterly silent. "So for your sake," Soojin added, voice tightening, "I sincerely hope the security footage supports your version of events. Because if it doesn't, you will answer for every word you just said." Melania swallowed hard, her false composure finally cracking. Blake cleared his throat, eyes avoiding Soojin's as he shifted uncomfortably. "Let's check the cameras," he muttered. No one objected. The store manager, who had remained awkwardly silent the entire time, hurried to the back and returned moments later with the security footage. The video played silently on a monitor. Jungkook entering quietly, speaking respectfully, offering his money, the bracelet slipping and falling. No theft, no deception, just a young man trying to buy a gift. The silence that followed was suffocating. Officer Doyle exhaled and rubbed a hand over his face. Blake's jaw ticked with restrained frustration. And Melania? She looked as if the marble beneath her designer heels had crumbled. Her expression was pale and tight, her confidence hollowed out. Soojin's voice returned, this time deadly soft. "So tell me, Sergeant, what happens now? Do you still want to arrest him?" Blake said nothing. He didn't have to. The answer hung heavy in the air. Soojin turned to Melania. "And you?" she asked, tilting her head. "Would you care to explain what exactly you were so certain of?" Melania's lips parted, then closed again. Her eyes searched the room for an ally, but none were to be found. The customers, once eager to believe her, now looked down or away. She began, but the rest never came. No defense, no apology, just the realization that she had overplayed her hand and lost. Soojin gave a slow, knowing nod. "That's what I thought." Blake cleared his throat again, trying to sound authoritative. "Ma'am, I think we're done here." Soojin arched a brow. "No apology?" Blake clenched his jaw but remained silent. Melania opened her mouth one last time, searching for something, anything that might salvage her pride, but nothing came. Soojin turned to Jungkook. "Come on," she murmured. "Let's go." He didn't move right away. He stood there, staring at Blake, at Melania, at the debris of what had just happened. He wanted to feel relief, vindication, even justice. But instead, all he felt was exhaustion. Because no matter how many of these battles he won, the war never seemed to end. He exhaled and finally stepped forward. As he passed Melania, he looked her in the eyes and said, "All I wanted was to buy a bracelet." His voice was calm but heavy with everything she had tried to take from him. "But I guess I got something more valuable instead." And with that, he walked out, head high, back straight, leaving Melania frozen behind him as the glass doors shut with a final echoing hush. Outside, the sun was bright and the afternoon air crisp, but Jungkook's chest still felt tight. His hands ached from how tightly they'd been clenched. Soojin walked beside him, steady and poised, but he could feel the storm of restrained anger radiating from her. They didn't speak right away. Her heels clicked sharply on the pavement. When they reached the car, she turned to him at last. "Are you okay?" she asked, voice careful but with a weariness that spoke of years of similar battles. Jungkook let out a slow breath and glanced back toward the boutique. Through the window, Melania still stood frozen. Blake's jaw was locked. Doyle looked somewhere between relieved and ashamed. The customers who once stared now avoided eye contact. Silent complicity hung in the air. "I don't know," Jungkook said finally, dragging a hand over his face. "I should feel better. Like I proved something. Like I won." Soojin studied him. Then she sighed, her expression softening slightly. "You shouldn't have had to prove anything." The words hit him harder than he expected. He nodded once, slowly. "Yeah," he muttered. "I know." Then the boutique door opened again. Jungkook turned and saw Melania Trump step outside. Her posture was stiff, her eyes locked on him. She opened her mouth, then closed it. She didn't apologize. She didn't say a word. She simply turned and walked away, slow, rigid, and smaller than she had ever seemed before. Melania stepped outside. Jungkook's entire body tensed. Her hand clutched the strap of her designer purse so tightly her knuckles had turned white. She looked different now, smaller, hollowed out. All the confidence and entitlement she had worn like a second skin had drained from her face. Her lips were pressed together as if she were battling herself, caught in the uncomfortable realization of what she had done, or perhaps what the world had just seen her do. She took a step forward, then another. Her mouth opened, then closed again. Her eyes flicked from Soojin Han to Jungkook, her expression teetering between pride and panic. After what felt like an eternity, she exhaled. A faint shake of the head, a stiffness in her jaw, and then nothing. No apology, no explanation. She just turned away and walked briskly down the sidewalk like she could escape the consequences. Jungkook let out a short, humorless laugh. "Figures," he muttered. Soojin scoffed beside him, folding her arms. Cowards never know how to say they're sorry. They watched Melania disappear, her stiff posture and quick steps betraying a woman trying to outrun her own reflection. Jungkook should have expected it. People like her rarely faced what they'd done. They rarely said the words that mattered. Still, it stung. A moment later, Blake and Doyle exited the boutique. Doyle glanced briefly at Jungkook, his jaw tight, his hands twitching at his sides like he wanted to say something but couldn't find the words. Blake didn't even look at them, just nodded once in Soojin's direction, an unspoken admission of defeat, then turned on his heel and marched to the patrol car. Jungkook sighed. "So that's it?" Soojin glanced at him. "For now," she said quietly. He turned and looked back at Maison Trump one last time. Inside, customers had already gone back to browsing, as if the last 30 minutes had never happened, as if they hadn't just watched a global icon get accused of theft and nearly arrested over a lie. He clenched his jaw. "I just wanted to buy a bracelet," he muttered. Soojin reached out, gently squeezing his shoulder. "I know," she said softly. He took a deep breath and exhaled slowly. The tension in his body finally began to fade, though not entirely. They walked toward the car. Justice had been served, maybe. But the deeper fight, the one that followed them into every room, every look, every silence, wasn't over. It never really was. Inside the car, Jungkook leaned back in the seat, letting his head fall against the rest. Soojin sat beside him, both hands on the steering wheel, her nails pressing into the leather. The engine hummed quietly. Outside, people walked by, chatting casually, unaware or uninterested in what had just happened. The sky was still the same bright shade of indifferent blue, but Jungkook still felt the sting of her accusation clinging to his skin. Soojin finally broke the silence. "Are you sure you're okay?" Her voice was softer now, not the composed crisis manager, but something closer. A friend, a sister figure, not corporate, but human. He stared at the dashboard, his fingers drummed lightly against his jeans. I don't know, he said honestly. His voice was low and gravelly. I feel angry and tired, and like none of it really matters, because tomorrow it'll be someone else, and no one's going to stop to ask if they're okay. Soojin inhaled sharply, her hands tightening on the wheel before she released them slowly. I know, she said. It's a cycle. But today, you didn't let them break you. Jungkook let out a bitter laugh. Didn't I, he said. I stood there while she talked about me like I was nothing. And everyone just let it happen. Even after she got caught, even when it was all on video, she still couldn't say the words. He turned towards Soojin, frustration simmering behind his eyes. How do you fight something that deep? How do you make people see you as a person when they've already decided you're not? She didn't respond right away. She stared ahead, her lips pressed into a firm line. When she finally spoke, her voice was low but unshakable. By refusing to let them define you, by knowing who you are even when they try to tell a different story, by showing them over and over again that they're wrong, even when they'll never admit it. Jungkook clenched his jaw and looked out the window. It didn't feel like enough. It never did. But maybe for now it was all they had. Silence stretched between them again. But this time it wasn't empty. It was full of weight, of truth, of shared exhaustion. Then Soojin reached into her bag and pulled out her phone. Jungkook raised an eyebrow as she scrolled through her contacts and lifted the phone to her ear. Who are you calling? He asked quietly. She didn't answer right away. The line rang once, twice. Then, Cynthia, I need a press release. Immediately. Yes, Maison Trump. I want a full investigation into the call that was made to dispatch. I want an internal review of Sergeant Blake's conduct and a public statement on racial profiling and the misuse of emergency services. Make sure the media knows exactly what happened here today. Jungkook's eyes widened slightly. You're really going after them. Soojin lowered the phone slightly and gave him a look, sharp, protective, and certain. You think I was going to let this go? Jungkook exhaled, something between relief and disbelief settling into his chest. He had watched so many stories like his end with silence and shoulder shrugs. This time someone was saying, not today. Someone gets profiled, humiliated, accused, and then even when the truth comes out, nothing really changes. That's how these stories usually end. But this time, this felt different. This wasn't a moment that vanished the minute they stepped out of that store. It felt like a fight that had only just begun. Jungkook nodded slowly, the tension in his shoulders easing, just slightly. Good, Soojin murmured, returning to her phone call. And Cynthia, make sure Melania Trump's name is in the statement. If she thought she could walk away from this without consequences, she was mistaken. Jungkook let out a slow breath and glanced down at his hands. Maybe justice didn't always come immediately. Maybe it didn't arrive wrapped in apology or regret. But sometimes justice looked like accountability. And for once, he wasn't the one left holding the burden alone. 3 days later, Maison Trump was everywhere. News stations aired the footage. Talk shows dissected every detail. Social media was ablaze. #justice for Jungkook, #Maison Trump boycott, and #profiling. Isn't security that all trended globally for days? The boutique's Yelp page was flooded with one-star reviews. Critics called it a palace of prejudice wrapped in privilege. Melania Trump had been placed on indefinite leave. Rumors swirled that she had, in fact, been quietly removed from ownership altogether. HYBE released a powerful public statement condemning discrimination, and an independent review of the Beverly Hills Police Department's conduct had been launched. Body cam footage showed just how quickly Sergeant Blake had tried to detain Jungkook, without evidence, without questions. Jungkook scrolled through the articles, barely registering the headline. He should have felt victorious, triumphant, but all he could think about was how close it had been, how differently things might have gone if Soojin hadn't walked in, if Officer Doyle hadn't hesitated, if there hadn't been cameras. His thoughts were interrupted by a familiar voice squealing with delight. "Appa, look what Mom got me!" Before he could react, his younger sister crashed onto the couch beside him, her small wrist proudly lifted into the light. A silver charm bracelet glittered beneath the lamps. Tiny charms danced as she waved her hand excitedly. Jungkook's chest tightened. "You like it? Are you kidding? It's perfect." She grinned, then paused, a little frown forming between her brows. "But I thought you were going to get it." He hesitated. His mother had clearly gone back and bought the bracelet herself. He hadn't been able to step into that place again. Not yet. The thought of returning to that boutique, of seeing that room, that face, that moment, it was too much. I picked it out, he said finally, managing a soft smile. That's what matters, right? His sister beamed and nodded. Right! She flung her arms around him in a hug before jumping up and dashing off to show their mom again. Jungkook sat back and watched her go. Maybe it wasn't a perfect ending. Maybe there never would be one. But in this moment, his sister was happy. And for now, that was enough. If you were moved by this story, don't forget to like, subscribe, and turn on the notification bell. Because every story we tell is a reminder that empathy, dignity, and justice still matter, even when the world tries to forget.